Hello and welcome to this webinar on what you can build with no code. My name is Jake, and the purpose of this webinar is first of all to show you the types of business applications you can build using no code, and also to show you how quickly and easily you can actually create those applications. So let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at an overview for this webinar so we know where we're headed and what we'll be doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some example use cases, some example applications that can and have been built using no code. Then we're going to take a look at some of the core capabilities and core features of a no-code platform like GW Apps, just so you know and get a better idea of the types of tools you'll have at your disposal while building these applications. Then I'm going to jump right in and start building a very simple purchase request approval application to give you an idea of the building process and to show you how quickly you can get an app up and running. And then finally, we're going to take a look at some additional applications in a little more detail, take a look at their structure, the benefits they bring, some of their features, etc. And then we'll close this out with a Q&A if there are any questions. And if you have any questions during, please feel free to ask. I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. So let's go ahead and get started by jumping over to GW Apps and taking a look at some of those applications. Okay, so here we are on my application dashboard. These applications here should give you a pretty good idea of the types of business applications or processes you can create with no code, but it doesn't cover every possible use case. And of course, one of the main benefits of no code is that your application will be unique to your needs and highly customizable. But you can create things for managing physical or digital assets, tracking their life cycle, location history, billing status or subscription periods, etc. You can create approval-based process applications like purchase requests or authorization for expenditure with any number of approval stages as needed. You can create custom CRMs. You can create surveys for internal or external users. You can create event planning applications for managing and tracking events and tasks associated with those events. And you can create time-based applications to manage employee or consultant time or time off requests, etc. Again, this does not cover every possible use case, but hopefully it's given you a pretty good idea, at least of the types of business applications that can be built. Now let's jump back over to the slides and take a quick look at some of those core features of a no-code platform. All right, so as you can see here, we have a list of 9 features. Not every no-code platform will have all of these features. These are the features that come with GW Apps specifically. We have a form builder, entirely no code, just drag, drop, and configure. Forms sort of serve as the base or bedrock of your application. It's where you decide what kind of data you want to capture. It's where you submit that data, and so on. Workflow and automation, also a very important aspect of no code applications. You can have any number of workflow stages. You can have automatic or scheduled triggers, action buttons that are highly customizable, things like that. When I build an application, I'm going to be focusing on just these two, the form builder and the workflow and automation, for the sake of time. But they are very important parts of an application. Flexible reporting is also something common to many no-code platforms. Most will have a way of viewing your data after you submit it. Usually this is in the form of multiple view types that are highly configurable. You can filter them, group them, sort them, and customize them to your needs. Role-based security is also a very important part of applications or no-code applications. This is, deciding who has the permission to see, edit, or take action on data. So if you have very precise, fine-grained security options, it's better for those approval processes that require a high level of security. Now, some of these other features we're not really going to touch on in this webinar, but just know that they're there as options, things like notifications, dashboards, etc. Now let's go ahead and jump over to GW Apps and actually get started building an application so that you can see how quickly we can get one up and running. So I'm going to jump back over to GW Apps. I'm going to go ahead and start a new app, and I'm going to build it from scratch. I'm going to name this purchase request. I'll give it a dollar icon. I could just choose a simple little icon here and maybe a green color. That's fine. All right. And then I'm going to create now. Great. Okay, so here I am in the application builder designer. This is the back end of my application. It's currently just a shell of an application. There's not really anything in here, but it did automatically create one form for me. As I mentioned, forms are sort of the bedrock of applications. So we're going to get started by designing our form and deciding what kind of data we want to capture. So this is the form builder. We have in the middle here our form. On the left, we have our layout components and our fields to choose from. Across the top, we have some additional options that we can configure, like workflow and security. And then over here, we have just a few more layout options. Now, the first thing I want to do is, of course, decide the kind of data I want to collect and then decide how I want to organize it. And since this is a purchase request approval application, the first thing that I want to see is who is making the request. So I'm going to edit this section here. I'm going to double click here and just replace this with requester info. Oops, excuse me. As you can see, I just double clicked and typed into this section here. I'm going to drag then a 2-column layout right onto my section. This will let me put fields into 2 columns. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to grab a system field created by, and I'm going to grab another system field created on. Now these fields will be automatically generated when a record is created. Whoever creates the record, it will fill in their name there and it will add the date it was created. Now we also need, of course, information on the actual purchase. So I'm going to add another section here, again, just by dragging and dropping it there. We'll call this purchase request details. Great. I'm going to grab a 3-column layout. And there's just a few things I need to know about this purchase request. One of those is a title. I'll just write here title, so I know what the purchase request in general is about. I'm also going to add a date field. This will be date required, when the purchase is required by. And then I am also going to add a drop-down field right over here. This will be category. Perfect. Now I still need to configure the list options for this drop-down menu, and to do that, all I have to do is open up the fields properties with this little eye icon, go up to the options section of the field properties, and here I can just manually edit my options, my values. I'm going to put here computer. Oops, did not spell that right. There we go. Let's say vehicle and furniture. These are not necessarily related, but for our purposes, they'll work. I'm going to go ahead and save that and close out of that. Now, of course, what's missing here is the actual purchase information, and I want to give my users the ability to add multiple items or multiple purchases into one request. So I'm going to bring a table element onto here. This table element will allow me to add columns of fields, and then when the user is filling out the form, they can add as many rows as they want to this table. So the first column here, I want to know the item, what is being purchased or what is being requested. I'm going to go ahead and add another column here. I'm also going to want to know, I'm going to change this to a number field, how many. So number required, how many of that item do we need? I'm going to move myself out of the way. I'm going to add one more column here. It's going to be a currency field, and this will be the price per unit. And of course, I want, oops, not unity. Of course, I also want to see a total for however many, the number required times the price per unit. So I'm going to add one more column. It'll be another currency field, and let's just call this total. Now, ideally, this total will automatically be created or generated, or but based on these 2 fields here. So in order to do that, I have to add a formula to this field. And in order to do that, I just need to configure the properties by opening up this properties panel. I'm going to go to the fields section here, and then I'm going to open up that total field that I just created. And then down at the bottom here, you can see use formula. I'm just going to toggle that on. And I can actually bring in field data to use in my formula by using the @ symbol. You can see here I have this number required, so I want to use that. It's going to be number required times @ symbol again, price per unit. So now this total field will multiply the number required by the price per unit and automatically generate that field for me. I also want to see the column totals. So if they're adding additional rows and adding additional items, we get a total of all of the items. So I'm going to toggle this option on as well. I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Okay, I think that actually kind of does it for the form for the time being. Of course, we could add and extend this form by adding another section maybe for purchasing information or additional approval information, things like that. But for our application, this will do. So I'm going to, again, just make sure I save. I always double check. And I'm going to move over to the workflow section and start configuring my workflow and get an approval process started. So as you can see on the left here, I have a list of stages. The first thing I want to do is create all of my necessary workflow stages. So we have a draft stage and a completed stage. I actually want this completed stage to be called approved. So I'm going to edit that stage and just call that approved. All right. And then I'm going to add a stage. This stage we'll call just pending. This will be pending approval. Let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to drag this pending in between my two stages there. And I'm going to add one more stage. This will be a rejected stage. All right. Let's go ahead and I'm going to hide the icon to match the other two. Great. So those are my three stages for my approval process. And the next thing that I need to do is configure a way of moving through the workflow. And in order to do that, we're going to be using action buttons. So as you can see here in the default stage, we have a submit action button. I'm going to open up the properties for this button just to see what it's doing. As you can see, we have conditional actions and we have default actions. The default action right now is to change the stage to approved, which was the original field or stage that was already there. But I actually want this submit button to move it to the pending stage, so I'm going to change that. Great. I'm going to save just to make sure, and I'm going to move over now to the pending stage. Now, in the pending stage, this is where the approval happens, so I need two buttons. I need an approve button, and I need a reject button. Great. I'm going to go ahead and open up the field properties for the approve button, and I'm going to change the action, change stage, approved. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the rejected button, action, change stage, rejected. All right. I'm going to save that. Now, that actually does it for our approval workflow. At the moment, the record can be submitted. Once it's submitted, it can then be approved. And once it's approved or rejected, it moves into an appropriate stage. Now, of course, what we would need to do is configure some user security. We're not going to do that in this, this webinar at the moment, but you can do so here. You have your custom roles. You have your role general permissions, whether or not they can edit, delete, or just view or nothing. And then we have more granular field permissions, so you can choose to hide specific fields or specific buttons or sections, whatever you need. But let's actually take a look at our form and our application in its current state. So I'm going to launch the application. All right, so as you can see here, we have our requester info on top. Again, these are system fields created by, created on. They're blank right now. They can't be edited. They're going to be automatically generated when I submit this record. And then I have my purchase request detail fields like my title. I'll just do title example. The date it's required, we have a date picker, and we have our categories here as well. So if I choose computer, for example, here's the table. I can type in something here like a Dell laptop. Let's say I need one of them, and they are $1,500. And you can see I actually can't edit this total field because it's there's a formula on there calculating that for me. And as I increment this, the total is automatically incremented. And as I mentioned, the users are able to add rows. So I can have item 2 at this price, and then we'll get a total here. As I mentioned, there are more steps to make this an actual secure application, like having user permissions and security, ensuring only the right people can approve or reject. But at the moment, let me just go ahead and submit this record. I'm going to go back into my purchase request details. This is my view. As you can see, I only have one record in here at the moment in the pending stage. I'm going to open that record, and we have our approve and reject buttons. And if I approve it, you can see it's now been approved. Had I rejected it, this would say rejected. So that's a very basic, very simple approval, purchase request approval application. As I mentioned, we would need to configure things like security. We could also add things like emails and notifications to send notifying people that they need to approve, or notifying them that their request has been approved or rejected, etc. But for the purpose of this webinar, I think this will do for now. All right, now let's actually go back to my application dashboard and let's take a look at some applications in a little more detail, just to get an idea of their structure, how they work, and maybe the benefits that they can bring. So I'm going to go back to my application dashboard. I'll open up my demo section. These are my categories on the left. All right, perfect. So the first application I think we should take a look at is the purchase request, because I was just building a similar application, and we can see what a completed application looks like if we spent a little more time on it. So immediately when I launch this application, I'm taken to a dashboard. This is a page where we can see things like the current records and how many are in each stage of the workflow. Similarly, this is an embedded view where we've grouped together our records by status. You can see here I can extend that, and we can view any of these records in here, and obviously get a pretty good idea of what stage they're in and what needs to be approved. I'm going to go ahead and open up the main form here. So this is quite similar to the application we just created, although much more polished. We have a requester section. In this application, there's a field that we can edit here, and we can choose a specific user as the requester, perhaps if we're requesting on the behalf of someone. We have a department dropdown similar to that category dropdown. We can choose an approving manager who is in charge of approving this request. We've got a title, the date, and the category. Now, this application has two approval stages. It has a manager's approval and then an additional approval. But not every purchase requires an additional approval, and it's dependent on the asset category at the moment. So you can see here, if I select a category like PC laptop, you'll see now this requires additional review says yes, and this is the additional review approver. Now I can edit this value because I'm an admin on the application, but the users would not be able to edit this additional approver. That would be preset. As you can see, we also have this items to be purchased, or this table with a similar layout, just SKU item number added as well. But again, totaling the numbers there, and we have some additional fields at the bottom, like an attachment field for additional attachments. Now, let me go ahead and open up one of the views. This is an active request view. So this is a table view, and you can see we've got four active requests at the moment, and the stages that they're in are on the right here. I can open up one of these in a preview window and review the details here. It's the manager's review. I am the approving manager, so I can approve or reject this request. As you can see, there is no additional review required. So if I approve this, it goes immediately to approved for purchase. And here, whoever's in charge of purchasing could come down and add in some of this purchasing information. For example, when it was purchased, who purchased it, when it was shipped, etc. And the vendor. And then I can, again, approve. Oop, I think I missed a field. Oh, date required. 1 second here. This date is too early. There we go. All right. So that's to give you a pretty good idea of the approval process for this one. Let me go ahead and go to another view here. We have by status view. Again, this is just grouped. All of these views are going to be grouped in slightly different ways to see our records in different, to filter our records in different ways. I can see by requester, by category, by department, etc. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another application. I think that kind of covers this application here. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Let's take a look at the event planning template. Now, this is a great template for managing or planning events, assigning tasks to people for those events, and then tracking the event through completion, until it's finished. You can see we've similarly got a dashboard here with some active events, an event calendar where we can see our active events on the calendar when they're happening, etc. Let me go ahead and open up the main form here. This is the main event information form. When you're creating an event, you'd fill this out. We've got things like event info, short name, manager, schedule information. And then we also have, as I mentioned, tasks. At the moment, you're not going to see any records for this specific form because this is not an event yet. But we can see all in progress and planned tasks and all completed tasks for a specific event. And we have a document section just for uploading some documents. I'm going to go to the active events view really quick and open up one of these active events, maybe one that's coming up. This one's coming up in a couple days, it looks like. So as you can see, we are viewing this record. We can see all the information here. We can generate a PDF summary if we want. This will generate a PDF report with form data from this record. We can archive the event, perhaps if it's finished or we're not putting it on anymore. I'm going to go over to the tasks section. So as you can see here, we now have some records in this in progress and planned tasks. I can expand that. This is grouped by who it's assigned to. So I could come into this view and see my name and realize I have these 3 tasks that I need to take action on. On the right here, we have some actions that we can take directly within or directly from the event record. I can move it to the in progress stage, notifying somebody that I am in progress, working on that. I can also complete a task here. I can email the assignee, which would be me. So this would probably be more useful for a manager to come in and email me to notify me that, hey, this task needs to be done, etc. And then as soon as a record is completed, it will move down here, although we may just need to refresh. But you can see here we have a completed task now. All right. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the calendar quickly. This is just a very simple calendar, but we can see our events on the calendar, their duration, and we can open up the records directly in here just to see some more information about them directly from this view. All right, we also have in this application another form, which is the task form. So tasks are handled with a second form in the application. As you can see here, we have just general task information. We have the event the task is for, a title, department. This is for the calendar, just so that we know what event the task is for when we view it on a calendar as a quick reference. And we can choose whether or not to show it on the calendar. It's conditional based on this field. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at a task Kanban board now. I'm not going to save that. So a Kanban board, as you can see, displays our records in a column. We have these columns. These are our workflow stages for our tasks. So they start planned, then they go to the in progress stage, and then they move either completed or past due. The benefit of a Kanban board is we can view our records in these card formats. We can extend them to see additional information, and we can also drag them into a new section. Now, this specific implementation of this Kanban board includes some filtering fields. This is actually a form with a Kanban board added to it, but we can filter these tasks by event, by the priority, and by who they're assigned to, just by using these fields. All right, and we do have just a simple task calendar, again, just for viewing tasks quickly on the calendar to see when they're due. Okay, I think that kind of does it for this event planning application. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one. Let's take a look at the custom CRM. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a great solution for organizations who may find a full-blown CRM solution too robust or too complex for their needs, or they want a highly customizable CRM. So that's the benefit of a CRM like this. A no-code built CRM is it's highly customizable and easy to customize. Like the other two applications, we're starting on a dashboard. We have some links actually to our forms. We can start creating a new company. We can start searching our company records. Here we have some views. We can see who's near closing, and then companies just grouped by the status that they're in. And across the bottom, we can see a 90-day breakdown of which stages, our clients are in. We can see how many were won in the last 90 days, how many were lost, how many are in negotiation, etc. Let's go over to the main form for this application. This is the company form. As you can see, we have many fields for company information here. And then we also have, similar to the event planning, our tabs. So every company may have any number of contacts. We have some opportunity information, so we can track the opportunity for this particular customer or client. And then we have some task. This is another, task implementation, different than using a separate form. We're using just this one company form, and we're just adding our tasks directly to that form. And it also has this table, so we can add additional entries for contact history. Now, we can head over to a Kanban board. Again, here we have all of our workflow stages, and we can just move these records through the stages as we need. We have this search form, which is similar to the Kanban board I showed you in the previous application, except this is a table view which can be searched and filtered with these fields up here. And we do have a second form in this application. We have a contact form. This is where you would go to create new contacts for a company. You can select their company name, etc., add all of their information there. And then, of course, if we open up, I'm going to go to this all companies view. If we open up an actual record here, we can see some of that actual data filled out, as well as some actual records here. All right. Now let's go ahead and head back and take a look at just one more example. Let's take a look at a survey application. Now this is a sample survey application, so there are a few different surveys in here. We have something like a patient survey. Again, any sort of external or even internal surveys can be created on with no code. You can see this is just a one-page form with a bunch of different fields to fill out. So this is an option. We also have a stepper style form, which is similar to the tabs, as you can see across the top here, except I can't click the second option without moving to the next page using this next button. And of course, this can have some required fields on this page, which I need to fill out before I move on. Certainly possible. Now, once we move on, it's quite similar to the previous one, although this one does include things like a consent agreement, which needs to be ticked before you could submit. There's also a random gift card drawing feature where if every field is filled out, you'll see an option here, which I believe I have a record here actually, which will show that. If I go ahead and edit this. So yeah, you can see here by checking this box, you indicate that you would like to be entered, and then they can enter their email by doing that. Another interesting feature of this specific form is the Save Progress feature. Now this works even for anonymous users. The way it works is you would fill out your email, it will send you a link, and the user can use that link to resume editing and then finally submit their record. All right, and then we have also just a very simple customer survey, single page, and we can link to this survey anonymously via a link, which I've enabled for this specific one. So if I click that, this is an anonymous form. The person filling out this form will be considered an anonymous user, so any information that you want to get from them, in this case, they would have to fill out on the form. But as you can see, we have all of the fields here. We have everything. We can fill them out just as we would, and we can submit this record. All right, let me get out of this real quick and back here. Okay, now that pretty much does it for this webinar. I think that some of these other applications have additional features. There are features I didn't touch on, but hopefully you got a pretty good idea of the kinds of applications that you can build, and also how easy it is to actually build those applications on a no-code platform like GW Apps. All right, now let's go ahead and just head over back to the slides. All right, and that does it for this webinar. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in trying out GW Apps, you can start your free trial at this link here, register.gwapps.com. Or you can always visit our website, gwapps.com, schedule a demo with me or another member of our team to help you review the platform, answer any additional questions you may have, and see if no code is a good fit for you. So thank you for watching, and take care.